Harry Stevenson, folks, is the next one for Pipers'Persuasion. And we welcome you, Harry, to Pipers'Persuasion today. Thanks very much for taking part in the programme. And we're going to discuss, amongst other things, this special project that we're involved in with the 70s Tribute. The medley this year we'll be discussing the Shots one. But before we move on to that in a minute or two, could you just tell, for the folks watching all over the world, Harry, what did you do in your earlier life? Where you work at? You stayed. Did you always stay in the Belfast area? Or what's the story?
Well, I was born in Belfast on the east side of the city in 1945. When I was about 10-year-old, we moved out to the outskirts. It was a country area where my dad had actually been born. We lived actually for 4 years just in the wee farm cottage where my dad had been born. And that's where I started to learn to play pipes.
Okay.
It was just around about my 12th birthday. My father handed me a practice chanter and a Logan's tutor, and away we went. Then my dad at that stage played in the East Belfast pipe band. He was pipe sergeant.
He was a good player.
He was an extremely good player and a very thorough teacher.
Okay.
And but he wouldn't play in solos. I asked him one time, "Why don't you play?" And he said, "No." He says, "I haven't the nerve for it." And one or two of the top players here at the time, back in the 50s, actually pleaded with them to play. Mm-hmm. He just wouldn't. Anyway, eventually we moved. We moved into more modern housing in Dundonald. My dad had decided to retire from East Belfast, and he wanted me to join the Robert Armstrong Memorial. So I joined the Armstrong. I would have been about 14. And so that was fine. I came into the Armstrong, I think it was the winter of 1959. About 1961, well, Tommy Geddes was the pipe major. Jack McClintock, Jack was the pipe sergeant. And Jack, you probably wouldn't know, Jack was closely related to the McAllister family in Shots. Tom McAllister Sr. was Jack's uncle. And Jack had decided to retire. And one night, it was after the annual general meeting, and Jack stood down. Tommy said to me, he said, "Don't be going for the bus." He says, "I'll run you home." And ran me out home. Come into the house, Mum and Dad were just sitting by the fire. And he said to my dad was Harry as well as me. He says, "Harry, as you know, Jack McClintock's retired from the band." He says, "Would you come in as pipe sergeant?" And my father just said, "Right, okay." So my dad was in as pipe sergeant through to, I think, 1968. Yeah, 68, I think, was the last. That year we were second in grade 2 at Grangemouth. BP Grangemouth beat us with apparently a number of ex-Muirhead papers in the ranks. No, that was sort of my early piping days. Work-wise, I trained in accountancy for 26 years, roughly. I worked for one of the Guinness companies here. And then the Guinness were moving the finance departments to Dublin. So we got very, very favourable severance deals. And I worked on, I was 56 when I came away from Guinness. I was able to work on for another 11 years through a couple of firms. And I eventually retired at 67.
Uh-huh.
And so that was it. The judging thing came round. I had left the Armstrong. 1981 season was my last season. And Sam Bailey asked me to do some teaching at the Payton School. And the pupils that were doing elementary and advanced certificates, and there was 3 lads also doing the advanced certificate, elementary, intermediate, and advanced. And so I was teaching. I said to Sam, like, I have no certificates. He said, don't worry about that. So I was teaching the practical stuff. And then Sam said to me, look, would you consider doing the exams? So the first intermediate session, I sat down along with the lads and girls I was teaching and took the exam. So I got through that. And then, as I say,
What exam was that again? Just again,
the RSPBA intermediate certificate.
That allowing you to progress to study to be a judge or whatever?
Well, the rules then, I think, were you had to have the advanced certificate. And so I'd been teaching some advanced pupils, again, doing the practical stuff, because they had to play fairly big tunes. You know, you were looking at the 6-part Marches of Space, the John McCaffneys and so forth. And so I ended up doing my advanced certificate, passed it, and I got a phone call I got a letter. I think it was 70, can't get this right. No, it would have been 85. Yes, 1985. A letter from Bob Nicol at headquarters to see if I would be available to judge at the World Championships that year. So I went over, judged a leg of grade 4, and then along with Johnny Barnes, the final of grade 3. Fortunately, we agreed on the winner. It was in Inverkeithing in this district, won grade 3 that year. And so then the next year, I was over and it was a marathon grade 2. I think it was about 30 bands entered, along with the other Payton judge was Alan Rawlinson. That year, Annan Service won it. Game we both agreed with, which was nice. And then just in 87, I wasn't judging. My dad was still alive and well, and we came over for a week and we took in the Worlds, and that was the year 78 Frasers won it. I remember we followed, they played, I think they played the medley, and then they moved to a twee tuning ring, and then on through to play March to Spain Reel. And we what we did was selected certain bands and we followed them through for the 2 performances. I know when we get to maybe talking about makeup of medleys and that medley that day from the 78th Frasers, I thought was absolutely immaculate.
Mm-hmm. Was it a very memorable performance as far as you were concerned? Yes.
Extremely. They began with the 12/8 up to the line.
Uh-huh.
And they finished with an arrangement of, well, it would be an Irish tune called the Fox Hunters. They sort of, I think, alternated between waltz time and jig time. And I always remember it was a real exciting finish to that medley.
We're talking about medleys there, and it's maybe just a nice cue to talk about 1970, the World's Shocks and Dykehead won the medley competition. What's your recollection about that?
Right. We were grade 2 in 1970, we actually won the Grade 2 that day. But after we played, most of the boys, I think, headed off to the beer tent. I just said, I'm going to sit down and listen to all the medleys. And the thing that struck me that day about the Shots medley, they began with the Hills of Alva. Then they played their Slow Air. Then the Space Reels. I think they had a hornpipe and jig. It might have been George Allen and Walk on the Floor. But they finished, they repeated the third and fourth parts of Hills of Alva. So you had that complete, the start and the finish. And that always struck with me. I thought it was just the most musical presentation. Now, in those days, the bands didn't play. There was no big difficult tunes or anything.
Uh-huh.
You know, the Strathspeys and Reels you would have found, say, in the Scots Guards and the Seaforths books. Jigs were sort of the normal run of stuff. No great finger exercises. Hornpipes were a bit of a rarity by then. The interesting thing, just recalling back, Shots and Muirheads played their Slow Airs immediately after the opening tune. Red Hackle played their Slow Air in the middle of the medley.
Yes.
After the Strathspeys and Reels. Oddly, the Edinburgh Police didn't play Slow Air at all.
They didn't play any. Huh?
No. But one of the things I always remember, again, there was no strict rule or anything about how a medley was made up.
Aye.
Bucksburn District started their medley, a 5-pace slow roll into the Dark Island.
There you go. And did they slow march?
The slow march up to the circle. Now, don't ask me what they played after that, but I thought that was really impressive. The thing is, if a band tried that now, they'd be breaking the rules. But now, in 71, ourselves and St Patrick's Donaghmore had been upgraded into Grade 1. So our first medley, in those days it was only one medley, of course. We began with Caberfay. I think then 2 Strathspeys, 2 Reels. We then went into a wee 9/8 march called the Children of Larbert. Then into the Waters of Kileskew. And we finished, I think it was with the Jig Cutting Bracken.
Aye.
So we had our Slow Air in the middle or towards the end. And oddly enough, on hindsight, if I had a band now, I would get the Slow Air in immediately after the opening tune, because your pipes are still
still
fairly solid. Chanters haven't started the veer. What I found a lot when I was judging, especially the lower grade bands, if they're playing the Slow Air following a reel or a jig, and there was chanter variants, the second they hit the first beat of the Slow Air, you could pick up the variants and chanters, very, very evident.
It's because of the difference in the blowing of the instrument.
Yeah.
They get terribly excited with the fast tunes, so they're blowing a lot of air and squeezing the instrument and all the rest of it. And then they, for some sudden reason, because they're relaxing, they stop squeezing the bag as much, and they lie back, and now all of a sudden, all the dissonances come out in the D's, especially. It was all D's, wasn't it? Followed on by 2 or 3 other notes, but it was only took 1 or 2 out of about umpteen pipers on the field. Just 1 or 2, and that flung it right up and more or less chucked the band out of the competition, because the ones that held on to the D's are the ones that get mentioned in the prize list.
That's it. D's and F's were the usual two awkward notes on a chanter.
Aye. Low G seemed to be another one that pipe bands never seem to get right from time to time,
In my last few years judging, when bands were using harmony, the B to low G, you got a real discord.
Yeah.
The older, going back, say in the 70s and that, it wasn't a problem, but there was something it wasn't a harmonic, it was a noise.
Yes.
And to an extent, I would blame the way pipe majors gouged their chanters.
Yes.
And
there's certain ones that just they don't fit the reeds into the chanter. They fit the chanter around the reed. And all of a sudden, you've got holes that are total oval and about 3 inches long or something. So it's actually try to play the damn thing. But would you, Harry, subscribe to the view that what maybe helped the band's early doors in the 70s was the fact that there's a lower pitch? So that, these notes that we're talking about were not flung out so badly as what they can be nowadays because of the extremely high pitch.
Well, the Armstrong was always noted for a nice clear pitch in the chanter. We played Sinclair chanters. We used the McAllister reed. Now we had a particularly good set of Singlers, and I used to contact Tom McAllister directly for reeds, and we had a good pitch. I know they say back then the pitch was around B flat. I know it seems to have got beyond B flat a bit now, but we had a good sound. And if you even go back into the 60s, Muirheads played Hardy chanters.
Yes.
Which, okay, probably a fraction flatter than the Sinclair, but what a sound they had.
Yes.
When you listen to these bands, you weren't saying this is flat, this is sharp. It was a superb sound.
Aye, it's a good clean sound as well. Mm-hmm. But that was also promoted by the fact that the pipers to a man could blow at the instrument and knew how to control the instrument. So what was your approach to blowing and all that sort of thing? Did you have any theories about that at all, Harry?
Well, we didn't, although we played McAllister reeds, I know people say they're gutbusters. We manipulated the reeds a bit. We didn't shave them or cut at them or anything. We just sort of nipped them, got them down to that they could be freed up. And, okay, they would open up a bit. Okay, give them another wee nip. We didn't believe in blowing a big gutbuster of a reed, because halfway through a medley, that's when it will come apart on you.
Aye.
Again, with the chanters, the quality of the Sinclair chanter, McAllister reed, the whole sound was really, it was so stable. It was so durable. You know,
Harry, see when you originally got the reeds for these Sinclair chanters, I assume you'd maybe get them sometime in the winter and start blowing them in.
Yep.
Would that be the case?
yes. We'd have got a batch, usually about 2 dozen, about January. And we fitted them in. Last year's reeds just went in. If any of the boys were doing solos, hold on to that for your solo work. And we blew them in. But again, I would do a bit of work on them. You know, if a 2 dozen reeds, we'd do a wee bit of just manipulating, trying them, just sort of easing them down a wee bit, and then put them in with a mixture of blowers in the band. With a couple of, with about 3 or 4 older players. So, you know, they weren't going to be, you know, blowing a big hard reed. So we tamed it down a bit for them, but we didn't scrape at them. Then the younger lads, well, again, just let them blow, get the reed so that they could blow to their strength. Again, with a couple of lads who could handle a big reed. Funny enough, with 2 in particular, I used them. They would have had what they would call the master chanters. And I would have always set up to them. Always, you know, the day of a competition or the night before a competition, just tested their sound right and matched everybody.
It's a lot easier for you as well, rather than have to put up your own pipes and blow your pipes and get them back down, sort the chanter, put them back up again. If somebody else has got the chanter that you're matching against, it's a lot easier for you just to stand beside the pipers and adjust the tape or whatever you've got to do.
Yeah.
And you get through the setup much quicker. And it's a lot less energy expended by you as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the mercies we had in Yarnstone, even from the days when I joined the band, we always had a good pipe sergeant. Okay, when I joined, Jack McClintock was the pipe sergeant then. My dad came in. When my dad retired, Jackie McComb had it just for a year, but Jackie wanted to retire. And then I got it. And Tommy, the way we worked, Tommy did the chanters, I did the drones.
Yeah.
That the 1970 year, the year we won the Grade 2 at Aberdeen, Tommy had gone around the chanters. I did all the drones. And we blew up, played a tune, sounded good. But I remember a voice at my shoulder said, "Son, that's a good sound you have." And I turned around. It was wee Johnny Barclay, pipe sergeant of Shotts.
Very good. See, when you're talking about doing drones now, everybody runs about with drone tuners and all that sort of stuff. Now, you didn't have drone tuners way back in 1970. You didn't have plastic drone reeds either. You had cane and you had sheepskin bags with all the variability comes with weather and everything else.
Yeah, we drone reeds. We obviously it was cane. I got the reeds from DR McLennan. And they were excellent. But DR once gave me a really good tip on how to work with cane reeds. So we used that. With a mixture of really sheepskin bags and cowhide bags. Funny enough, I preferred the cowhide with no moisture control. I've never used moisture control. I still use cowhide bags.
And do you not get any problems with the moisture flashing off the inside of the hide bag in the inclement weather?
No, oh, again, in this day and age, I'm not playing outside. So,
Aye, but if you were,
well,
say, for instance,
well,
the climate being in Ireland and Scotland, it's always raining anyway, you know. And I remember playing at Rossi with the Renfrew Pipe Band under Tommy Anderson when I was very young. And I got dropped simply because I was using a hide bag and, you know, the voice would just flash right onto the reeds. And Tommy says, sorry, I need to drop you, you know. And the bag come out the following week and there was a sheepskin bag went back in again.
no, my father had, in those days, he played a set of Laurie drones, but with a Henderson hide bag.
Okay.
And he had the bag on for 8 years.
Jeez, there must be special cows you've got there in Ireland. Yeah, listen, I'm not letting you off the hook with this DR McLennan drone reads, the tip for working with the drone reads. What was his tip there?
Well, no, I've said to people, I'll tell you the tip, but then I'll have to kill you.
Well, nobody uses cane now. No, that's a lie.
It was a very simple one. But he said to me, your drone reads will be subject to climate change. And in the summer, it'll be very hot. And your reed will seem to get a bit coarse. Winter, much wetter climate. The reed will swell. It'll stop. He said, the simple answer, tie a new bridle on. Just retie it, put a new bridle on. And I used that. I still do it when I've cane reeds in.
So how often do you do that, Harry?
Just you know, if you feel a reed starting to, let's say, winter time, just starting to squeal a wee bit or stop break, just put new bridle on. And yeah, if you feel that the reed's just a wee bit unstable, cut the old bridle off and put a new one on. Although now, again, I would use synthetics.
Right, but when you're talking about, we'll need to explain to the listeners here. I know exactly what you're talking about, but if we're talking about tying a new bridle on, you're talking about hemp with beeswax through a coated beeswax, and you're only talking about 6 inches, or 5 inches, or 4 inches of hemp, and 2 or 3 turns. What kind of knot, how did you fasten the hemp?
Well, what I did, made a wee loop, about 3 turns round, tucked the end in through the loop, pulled it, and you pull the knot, as it were, was under.
Yeah.
But for security, tied a wee knot on it. The other alternative, it was a thing my father showed me. You would hold the drone reed in your mouth, make a clove hitch, bring it up across, and pull it tight. And of course, the clove hitch, the strands of hemp overlapped, and then you could put a wee knot onto it.
Oh, we'll need to get a drawing on the screen here, what a clove hitch is. Viewers, Google it.
Hang on.
Oh dear. The other thing about it is while you're looking at the clove hitch, tension first.
Here's your clove hitch.
You need to hold it right up to the camera here.
Okay, you see that?
Aye.
One there. One underneath. And we put the reed through.
One, aye. Okay, put it through. Yep. Aye.
I don't have a cane reed there. and you just pulled it. If I had my finger there, you pulled that, it was tight.
So, and the tension that you would pull on to Harry wouldn't be that tight. You would strangle the sort of reed. You watch.
You just you put it on, and then again you would just adjust. You would try it and say, right, is it too open, too closed?
Aye. You just nudge it up until you get to open and the double tone, and then it was able to be blown off.
It was my dad that I did the old-fashioned way. The loop, and then you put.
You need to hold that up to the camera again.
If it had cane read, I could show you.
Aye.
The loop, and then that was against the body of the reed, and then you put
further up again
and put the end through, pulled it, and the knot, as it were, went underneath. Was held. Again, you had to use waxed. You had to use really good waxed hemp.
Yeah.
But
which you could always go into a cobbler's and get a bit of beeswax, but there's no such thing as a cobbler's now.
You get down the wee block of beeswax or the thermal wax. The black thermal wax.
Yeah, that's right.
Happily, with synthetics, you don't really have that problem.
What did you use for seasoning at that time? For the bag?
Airtight, usually.
Yeah.
Sometimes, well, when I was a kid, my father used black treacle.
Yes.
But then you could get airtight, and it worked. In my current hide bags don't need seasoned.
Of course.
Just they're I have one on, a new one very recently there, but one put on in October.
Aye.
Hasn't been seasoned. It doesn't. The bag maker says it doesn't require seasoning.
It's a lot of them are using goat skin now.
I've actually never seen a goat skin bag.
They've got two or three of them across here have been using goat skin, and I say it's very good and all this, the rest of it, but I like the sheepskin, I must admit. And you got it, if you get somebody like Angus Laurie to make it for you at that time, Angus could make an extended length so that you weren't sort of cramped close in with your hands. You could reach out, if you're quite tall, longer arms. You got about 32 inches long rather than the standard 30, But I'm afraid I'm like the rest of the guys now, my age and all the rest, I just do the synthetic, and I've got a very, very good bag in just now, very happy with it indeed, lovely shape and all the rest of it. So there we go. So that was the setup with your bagpipe and your instrument. See, when you were judging, Harry, did you do the medley judge, or were you just the piping judge, or what was happening?
Well, I was I did a wee bit of ensemble judging at home, but I never did it in Scotland. But in piping, I preferred to judge March the Spen Rain because I knew the tunes. The medleys, especially in the later years, you were hit with tunes that you'd never heard in your life before, and they weren't all good tunes to my mind. A lot of unmusical tunes, a lot of finger exercises, a lot of round hornpipes and reel playing, which I detest. As bands still do it. And while I was judging, I penalised them for it. It wasn't right.
So you preferred the dot and cut to this round style. Latterly, I get the impression I couldn't tell a march from a suspense. No, a march, a reel, and a hornpipe apart, depending on the speed that we're getting played, and they were all getting played round, and this, that, and the next thing. And your reels and your hornpipes in particular, you know, the way they were expressed, somebody a lot more clever than myself would get it right away like that. You know, that's a hornpipe, that's a jig. But to the normal bystander at the side of the field, and some of them are very, very humdrum. And as I say, I don't know who was composing them. Maybe the computer was composing.
Was it a simpler computer by any chance?
But you must have despaired at times at the lack of music and some of the medleys you were listening to latterly.
Well, if I felt a tune was unmusical, I would have commented that there was a lack of melodic content. I remember on one top grade 1 band sheet, I think it was a jig they were playing, and I said, "This is just a jumble of notes."
Uh-huh.
That's all it was. It was a jumble of notes. Again, a lot of bands were guilty of too much harmony, especially in hornpipes and reels. In fact, just this year at one of our local competitions, I heard a band, grade 3 band, I think it was, harmonising on a jig. And the impression I got was somebody is playing an entirely different tune here.
Uh-huh.
There was no harmony. It was just a clash of notes.
Do you think it's because they maybe go and they learn music and they learn how to play guitars and accordions and pianos along with the pipes, and they think they've got a wonderful knowledge of music and how to write music, that just because they can do it, it means that they've got to do it, rather than having the patience just to say, no, that I know I can do it, but I don't need to do it, and I'm not going to do it.
Now, if you're going to use harmony on a tune, what you need to do is say 4 papers, chunder's well set. Right, play the melody, and one say, here's the harmony, and we'll start and go through it. Is there any clash of notes? Can you change it? And particularly, like, let's say B's to low G's.
Uh-huh.
So if it's going to be a B, don't use the low G, use a D. One of the things we did, one of the squares we played in the band was a wee old Gaelic air, Mary of the Bewitching Eyes. And against the low A, I used an F.
Uh-huh.
And it worked. Okay. Instead of using the C, we used an F.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We just tinkered about what worked and what didn't work.
But you weren't over embellishing the whole thing. You were still allowing the front music to come out, and it was merely decorated in the background by harmonies and counterpoints rather than being overwhelmed by it.
Okay, some bands, I'll not name, but some bands try as well as the harmony, the counter melody. And if you're going to do a counter melody, it has to be very, very carefully thought out, because that's where you can get a clash. And one or two bands do it very effectively. Funny enough, going back into the late 70s, very early 80s, Desert and Dundonald did, they finished one of their medleys with an arrangement of the Bluebells of Scotland.
Okay.
And they had a counter melody. And it was beautiful, but it was so well worked out. It was absolutely beautiful.
But Shepherd was in charge of that at that time, was that correct?
Oh, aye, Bob was alive and well then. Oh, yes.
Of course, and he was a maths teacher, so he would get that right, eh?
Well, you know, it was clever, the way it was done.
Aye, he was very clever, Bob. Aye.
Oh, he was.
Very
I had some good conversations with him.
Aye.
You know, I always got the impression that, you know, these top pipe majors and top players in Scotland, you know, they were totally gifted, you know, they just picked up the chanter and played it. And Bob told me himself, he says, he struggled. He struggled with wee 6/8 and, you know, maybe a particular grace note just to get it right. And I sort of thought, well, you know, that I was just the same. Like, I remember, okay, I'd learned the Rowan Tree in Scotland the Brave. I struggled with Bonnie Dundee. You know, just as a learner.
Again, you know, so much, I'll say that the small tunes, the easy tunes are only easy if you practice them the same as you practice the big hard tunes. You should never take any tune for granted and say, oh, you can just play that.
One of the things,
a bit of work and the execution and the timing.
One of the things I advocate to younger players, you know, especially for Strathspey and reels, learn the wee two-parters, because you'll get the particular movements, the double cuttings, the GD and E's, that if you get those off in the wee Strathspey or the wee reel, when you go into the Shepherd's Crooks and the John McCackneys, it'll just come naturally to you.
Yeah, because you've got the basics of what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, that's excellent. So I think we'll just maybe close with your thoughts on outstanding performances over the years that you've maybe judged or heard, pipe band wise. Who really was a stick out at a particular time?
If I've been asked this before, as a kid, you know, as a sort of a 12, 13-year-old, the first major impression was hearing the Old Finton Other Band from Dublin. Always remember, they played the Robert Reid setting of Highland Wedding, Tulloch Castle, and the 6 parts of Loch Carron. And I thought this was terrific. As time went on, the Tommy Anderson's Renfrew Band at the Worlds in 1962. That's the year 277 won it. But yes. I remember listening to Renfrew out in the Tuning Park, and I thought their piping was superb. As time went on, World's performances. The first year I judged Grade 1, that was the year at Scotstoun Park. Simon Fraser's. just Lord Alexander Kennedy was their march, and it was beautiful. Desert's winning performance in Canada at the CNE. Now, yeah, one back in 1975, we were over for the CNE. Bill Livingston at that stage had the City of Toronto band, and in their medley, they played a variation of Macintosh's Lament. I loved it. Apparently, the judges absolutely slated it. Just they ripped it apart. But it was well played. Again, the shots medley at 1970, the Hills of Alpha set. Now, in that set, there was no difficult tunes, but it was just how the whole performance was set up, the start and the finish. The 87 Worlds medley with the 78 Frasers, with Up to the Line and the Fox Hunters at the end. That was beautiful. The first time I ever judged, I think, Field Marshal Montgomery was at Falkirk, and this was in the days of the point sheets. And they were the last band to play. And again, they didn't play anything overly technical, but it was just pure, clean playing, good sound, no slips. They were the last band. I gave them 75. I gave them the maximum points. Like, you know, when you were training to be a judge, to say never ever give a band 75. That day it was worth 75. Richard Parks came to me later that season, and I said, I got another 75. I said, who from? He said, Bob Martin. So it was good. You know, it was good, clean playing. No slips, superb sound. Just the last grade 1 competition I did was at Lurgan, the UK Championships, and the O'Toole's won it. And just from start to finish, just I felt a real musical performance. I just enjoyed it. I had no kicks with it at all. And oddly enough, all 4 judges had the O'Toole's first that day.
Yeah.
You know.
What about the Strathclyde Police and the Vicky Police? Did you ever?
Yeah, I judged Victoria Police the year they won Worlds. They had a wee slip, but you know, I had them first. Shots at 2 slips, which just was unfortunate. The band that day, who to me had the cleanest piping run, was 78 Frasers. They had to qualify. Their chanters were shot to pieces.
Aye.
You know, when I got them, that was their 3rd performance that day, and the chanters were just all over the place.
Subsequent to the Zoom interview, Harry Stevenson sent me an email, and he said, when talking yesterday about memorable performances, I forgot to mention my most striking memory of the City of Glasgow Police Pipe Band. You may have been in the band at the time. Hannah Park and Shots, the European Championships on the first Saturday in September, sometime in the mid-60s. Angus MacDonald was a PM, and I think George White the pipe sergeant. It was a horrible day, and when the police band came on to play, the heavens really opened. It was torrential rain, and the band was played right through it. And if I can remember rightly, the set was Donald Cameron, Cameronian Rant, Pretty Marion. The sound was really good, it held all the way, and the piping was first class throughout, and the band won. I've always remembered this performance. The conditions were horrific to play in. Perhaps you may be able to add to this as a postscript to yesterday's presentation. So, folks, one of the beauties of being the editor, as well as other things in Pipers'Persuasion, is that I can make up my own rules. And I'm just adding this postscript, as Harry calls it, onto the back end of his clip about memorable performances of other bands. I must say I was rather miffed at the time that Paulus never got a wee mention in amongst these other classics that he was talking about at the time, but hey ho. Anyway, the actual story about that September, I'll just go through it here. Set of Glasgow Police Pipe Band, yes. Hannah Parton Shots, European Championships, first Saturday in September, sometime in the mid-60s. It was, I was either 65 or 66, but I fancy really it was 66 because I settled in the band for about 2 years. I was a probationary constable, and that period was between 65 and 65 and 66 really, stretching into the spring of 67 before I was fully confirmed as a police officer, and I joined the pipe band, as distinct from being on normal duties and being allowed time off to play with the police pipe band. During that period, indeed, Angus MacDonald was a pipe major, and a very, very good pipe major with great sound, and he managed the band very well, and they get terrific performances, and we were getting consistent first prizes every other week. Muirhead sneaked in, and I would say that, wouldn't I? But they won the World Championships 65, 66, 67, and we were pipped in 66 by a tenth of a point under Angus MacDonald. But I digress here. Angus MacDonald was a pipe major. It wasn't George White, the pipe sergeant, it was Ronnie Laurie. Ian McClellan was in the front rank, along with Angus McClellan and others. As to the day itself, shots, the first Saturday or second Saturday the first Saturday in September, high up in Scotland, Forth Clyde Valley, always raining, and I remember playing there one year with the Paisley British Legion. It was actually snowing, so bad weather and shots always came together. And this particular day, it was torrential rain all afternoon. And we arrived in the band bus, which was a Sugarly affair, hired from a small firm in Barrhead. I could write a book about that bus, but there you go. Anyway, we arrived there, we sat in the band bus and pondered about the weather, and we were last on. So we didn't get out of the bus, we merely peered through the rain-strewn windows, the weather, the wind, it was just stoating off the streets, as I say, and first grade bands were going away out there, and would you believe it, practising in the rain, also trying to set up chanters in the rain, blowing for God knows how long in the rain, and of course they all went on, and in a normal day crash and burned, but no, they just crash and get drowned. And so Angus MacDonald, undeterred by others, he turned round and said, "We're hashish," because that was his nickname, because they always started a wee story with hashish. Hashish, we are not practising out there today. We are not blowing the pipes out there today. Drums will not be beat out there today. We will sit in the bus. So, okay, so what's the next part of the story? Right, get your pipes out one at a time and tune up your drones. So this got near the time for it off, and we quickly took pipes out, played maybe 2 or 3 parts at 6/8 each as individuals, tuned up our own drones, and when that was all done, there'd be about 12, 13 of us pipers on the bus. And then Stuart come along, right, you're on next, okay, great. We filed off the bus, and I remember fine that on the day in question, with the full big heavy canvas capes on, we kept them on. None of this nonsense of playing without jackets in the rain and all that stuff you see nowadays. The full #1 kit, belts, braces, hairy sporns, white spats, big tunics, capes, all hidden by this heavy cape. And of course we had the feather bonnet, and we tucked the tails of the feather bonnet inside the feather bonnet so they wouldn't lash us in the face with the wind and the rain. And we marched onto the field. The field was sodden, but we marched on, and we kept the pipes downwards underneath the cape, the spread of the cape. We did not produce the pipes until ordered to do so. Pipes up, straight up onto the shoulder, none of this nonsense about hanging about. By a right quick march, and we played. Now, the set, I don't know if it was Donald Cameron, might have been. It certainly wasn't Cameronian rant. I never played Cameronian rant in a band in my life, too difficult. Might have been Bogan Logan, I think, Athol Cummers. Pretty Marion, yeah, pretty well, that could be the tune. It was a favourite with us at that time. Played right through, and not a blip or anything. It was lashing the rain, the pipes held, and they were absolutely brilliant sound. It was like a summer's day. Everybody held their nerve, no hands slipped in the chanter, they weren't wet yet. And by the time we finished Pretty Marion, it was just time enough to chuck it, because that's when the pipes would really start to suffer. Pipes down, marched off. We got away with it with dry pipes, dry hands for the most part, until most of the way through the performance, and it was only a minute or so we had to suffer maybe wet hands or whatever, but the hands were warm, they weren't cold, and there was no chips or anything at all. And we marched off. The wind, it was mild by that time, but the rain was stoating off the turf about 3 or 4 inches. But we produced a great performance and we won it. So it's simple as that. Postscript to that is bad weather. You accept that your sound's not going to be absolutely perfect in terms of drones, chanters matched up and all the rest of it. They had all been matched up the day before at band practice, and they were more or less there. And of course, Ronnie always had a look at the chanters and the bus journey and the road to the competition, as did Angus MacDonald. So we were pretty well set up by the time we arrived, and there was nothing untoward heard by anybody when individuals tuned up the drones. So we more or less knew what we were blowing, and times like that, you accept 80% performance and tone has been a good thing, because everybody else is getting drowned and they're only achieving 40-50% of their performance. So that's how you win competitions. So that's the story.
One of the things, going back to the Sinclair Chandler, we had a very good relationship with Willie Sinclair. The band, back in the 1950s, when Harry Daniel was the pipe major in Armstrong, the band played Sinclair Chandler. And that continued until, I think, in the late 50s, you couldn't get Sinclair chanters. And we played McPherson's. And then when Sinclair started production again, I think just the mid-60s, we were straight in with the new set, and we stuck right through to the 80s. One of the things, we had a number of sets of Sinclair drones in the band. We also, and it was a tip I got actually from John McAllister. John told me somebody came into shots and the drones maybe weren't up to scratch or what they expected. They would experiment different joints and so forth, and then they would send whatever was needed. They would send up to Sinclair's and get the replacement joints. So I asked Willie Sinclair, would he make me 6 bass drone bottom joints? And I put those. I'd one on my own pipes at the time, and it just seemed to beef the bass drum sound up. It was a finely bored bass bottom joint.
I think it was the same diameter as the tenor bottoms.
Aye.
Because I had a very, very, very good set of probably Hendersons made in 1914.
Right.
And when I joined the Glasgow Police band, I had these pipes, and Ronnie Laurie got hold of them. And Ronnie, one of his great attributes was sound, especially drone sound. And he seemed to know what he was doing with drones and all the rest of it. And he got together with Bobby Hardy. And I was just a young guy. I was only 22, 23, 24 when all this was going on, 25 maybe, you know. And they did away with I got the bottom joint, the original, they gave it to me, but they took the mounts off that and they made me a new bottom joint, and it was the tenor diameter. Put that in, and tremendous. They were good drones anyway, but very, very good bass sound off it. Aye. So there was 2 or 3 folk experimenting with bottom joints at that particular time, yeah. When was the last time you lifted a set of pipes? When do you still play or what?
Still, actually, I played them yesterday because I've been down here. I'm down here with Ken at the moment.
Aye.
And I brought my pipes down. I'm going to try a few reeds. The last public appearance was on the 2nd of April. I was playing in the Ross Priory in Gardaharn, outside Ballach, at my youngest niece's wedding. But prior to what I have done over the past 8 years, on and off, is done presentations of tunes from the First World War and then tunes from the Second World War. I get very interested in the history and the story behind the tunes in the two world wars.
Aye.
And
taking of Bowman Hamel, for instance, in the First World War, and marches like that, the Cantarata El Arish and all this. Actually, it's fascinating, the stories behind these First World War tunes. I quite agree. Well, it's too bad you couldn't have put the pipes up and just to finish up and give me taking of Bowman Hamel, you know. I mean, could give me marks out of 10 for that, yeah.
Well, they're not far away. Would you like a tune?
I just put them up and then we'll call it a day. Would you like to say goodbye to the folks before you go?
Yes, I hope they've enjoyed the chat, and I made them play Bowman Hamel, but let's see what happens.
Okay, thanks very much, Harry. We'll call it a day. done. Well done. Excellent. Beautiful music. We lost the sound there just latterly, but you hear me all right?
Yes, yes.
Aye. I get the first two parts perfectly. I don't know what happened to the microphone, the third and fourth parts, but the pipes are going well. And I don't see why you can't play the full medley and the Glasgow Green. You should be out there along with the rest of them.
Well.
Hey, you never know. You might be one of these reserve players that say, we've not got enough players. We'll need to get to step in at the last minute. Need to practice chanting out, learn all these tunes. Right, okay, that's right. Listen, thanks very much for everything. And that was a wonderful interview. And I'm quite sure all the folks will enjoy when they eventually put it up. I'm not going to put it up immediately, but I'm editing them all. And come August, I'll start feeding them through and everybody will see what's going on. Harry, thanks very much, sincerely. Lovely conversation with you and enjoy speaking with you. And if you're across the world in August, we'll have another conversation and look after yourselves. Thanks very much again.
Again, thanks, Alan, for asking me to do this. So stay safe. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Bye-bye.